The morning sun poured through the towering glass walls of Ashcroft, Global's headquarters, painting golden reflections across polished marble floors, where dreams were either welcomed or quietly destroyed. Hundreds of applicants waited with folders clutched tightly in trembling hands, each hoping that today would become the day their lives changed forever. Among them stood a tired single father wearing a carefully pressed but faded shirt, holding a worn leather folder that had survived years of struggle. His shoes carried the dust of countless job searches, and his eyes revealed the silent exhaustion of a man who had spent years sacrificing everything for his child. Just minutes later, his resume would be rejected with barely a glance. The CEO would dismiss him as another underqualified applicant who did not fit the company's image. But before sunset, she would discover something impossible. The signature resting at the bottom of the company's original founding charter belonged to that very same man. Before we continue this unforgettable journey, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to Soulful Tales. 2. Every act of support helps. Bring more inspiring stories to people who need hope the most. The man's name was Elias Mercer. At 46 years old, life had carved deep lines across his face that made him appear much older. Every wrinkle carried a memory of sleepless nights, unpaid bills, hospital visits, and quiet prayers whispered after his young daughter had fallen asleep. Since losing his wife 7 years earlier to a sudden illness, Elias had devoted every ounce of his strength to raising 12-year-old Nora. She never complained about their tiny apartment or the simple meals they shared. She believed her father could fix anything, even though she never realized how often he skipped dinner so she could have enough to eat. Every morning he packed her lunch with a smile, hiding his worries behind cheerful encouragement before beginning another day searching for stable work. Years earlier, Elias had been respected throughout the business world. Fresh out of university, he had helped a brilliant entrepreneur transform a risky idea into a growing technology company. While everyone admired the charismatic founder, Elias quietly built the company's financial systems, drafted legal frameworks, negotiated early partnerships, and personally prepared the incorporation documents that would become the company's official charter. He never sought recognition. His greatest satisfaction came from seeing something meaningful grow. When the founder became seriously ill, new investors arrived, bringing lawyers and executives who pushed out many original employees. Elias walked away peacefully, believing loyalty mattered more than fighting for titles. His modest stock options were sold cheaply to cover his wife's medical treatments. Years later, leaving him with nothing except memories, Ashcroft Global eventually evolved into one of the largest corporations in the country through mergers, acquisitions, and endless expansion. Most employees had no idea who had built the foundation beneath the empire. The original documents rested inside climate-controlled archives that nobody ever visited. The current CEO, Victoria Sterling, represented everything modern investors admired: intelligent, disciplined, confident, and relentlessly focused on growth. She had transformed the company into an international powerhouse. She believed success belonged to those who stayed ahead of everyone else. Her calendar was scheduled down to the minute, and every decision was driven by performance metrics. Compassion rarely appeared on financial reports, and over time she convinced herself that emotions only weakened leadership. That morning, Victoria insisted on personally reviewing several executive assistant candidates after her human resources department complained about an overwhelming number of applications. One after another, resumes crossed her desk before being sorted into neat piles. Prestigious universities, impressive certifications, international experience. Then Elias's folder arrived. The paper felt older than the others. His employment history contained large gaps caused by years spent caring for his sick wife and later raising his daughter while accepting temporary jobs. His references came from businesses that no longer existed. There were no polished recommendations from famous executives, no recent corporate titles, only quiet evidence of a hard-working man whose life had been interrupted by tragedy. Victoria barely spent 30 seconds reading before placing the resume into the rejection pile. She believed the company required someone who reflected excellence, not hardship. The receptionist politely thanked Elias for applying before informing him that another candidate would be selected. He nodded respectfully, thanked everyone for their time, and walked away without complaint. His shoulders remained straight despite the disappointment crushing his heart. Outside the building, he checked his phone and smiled after reading a message from Nora wishing him good luck. He refused to tell her the truth until he reached home because hope was the only gift he could still afford to protect. Back inside the building, preparations began for Ashcroft, Global's upcoming 50th anniversary celebration. Victoria instructed her executive team to prepare historical displays, showcasing the company's remarkable journey from humble beginnings to global success. Marketing employees searched through old archives looking for photographs, legal papers, and memorabilia that could impress shareholders during the anniversary gala. Late that afternoon, an elderly archivist named Harold entered Victoria's office carrying a weathered leather case. Dust covered its edges, and the brass lock looked untouched for decades. Inside rested the company's original incorporation charter, complete with handwritten notes and signatures from those who had built the business during its fragile first days. Victoria examined the document with professional curiosity until her attention stopped on one signature, Elias Mercer. The name echoed through her memory. She immediately reached for the rejected resume still resting in the discard pile. The signature on the application matched the elegant handwriting preserved on the historic charter with astonishing precision. Confused, she instructed Harold to explain. The old archivist adjusted his glasses before, quietly sharing stories few people inside the company still remembered. Elias had been more than an employee. He had practically served as the company's first operations architect. During its earliest years, when investors refused funding and creditors demanded payment, Elias often worked through entire weekends without compensation. He personally guaranteed several early contracts, using his own savings because he believed in the founder's vision. When legal complications threatened to shut everything down, he spent endless nights rewriting documents until approval finally arrived. Without him, Harold admitted, the company might never have survived its first year. Victoria stared silently at the signature again. How had someone so essential disappeared from history? Further investigation revealed painful answers. Records showed no misconduct, no scandal, no failure. Only quiet resignation after ownership changes. Removed many original staff members. Later files documented the sale of his remaining shares during a medical emergency involving his wife. Victoria suddenly remembered the exhausted man standing before her only hours earlier. For the first time in many years, numbers disappeared from her mind, replaced by an uncomfortable feeling she could not ignore. She realized she had judged an entire life through a single sheet of paper. Meanwhile, Elias rode a crowded city bus toward home, carrying groceries purchased with carefully counted coins. He forced himself to smile before opening the apartment door, because Nora always watched his expression first. She immediately noticed the folder, still tucked beneath his arm, and understood everything without asking. Instead of crying, she hugged him tightly and thanked him for never giving up. Her quiet faith became both his greatest comfort and greatest heartbreak. That evening, Victoria could not sleep. She kept imagining the man whose unseen work had created opportunities for thousands of employees, only to stand years later in the same building begging for an ordinary job. The next morning, she ordered human resources to locate Elias immediately. After several calls, they finally reached him while he repaired broken shelves at a neighborhood grocery store for daily wages. Believing there had been a mistake with paperwork, he reluctantly agreed to return. When Elias entered the executive boardroom, he expected another interview. Instead, every department head stood waiting alongside Victoria. The original company charter rested on the conference table beneath protective glass. Victoria slowly walked toward him, carrying his rejected resume. Without excuses or carefully rehearsed corporate language, she admitted she had made a serious mistake. She confessed that she had judged appearance instead of character, recent titles instead of lifelong integrity, and polished credentials instead of genuine contribution. She apologized not only as a CEO, but as someone who had forgotten the human meaning behind success. Elias looked quietly at the old charter before gently placing his fingertips near the fading signature. Decades of memories flooded back. He remembered empty offices filled with hope, cheap coffee shared among exhausted co-workers, impossible deadlines overcome through teamwork, and dreams that once seemed bigger than money. He never expected anyone to remember. Victoria then announced something that stunned everyone present. She was offering Elias not an assistant position, but the newly created role of Director of Founders, Legacy and Leadership Development. His responsibility would be mentoring young employees, teaching ethical leadership, preserving the company's history, and helping executives understand the values that had built the organization before profits became its only language. News spread throughout the building within hours. Employees who had never heard Elias's name lined the hallways to applaud as he accepted the position with quiet humility. The greatest moment arrived later that afternoon. Victoria personally visited Nora's school. Standing before teachers and students during a small assembly, she explained that heroes are not always famous, wealthy, or celebrated. Sometimes they are parents who quietly sacrifice everything so their children can dream without fear. She thanked Nora for believing in her father when the world had forgotten him. Nora ran into Elias's arms with tears streaming down her face. For years, she had watched him leave before sunrise and return after dark, always carrying hope even when life offered very little in return. Seeing an entire company honor the man she had always admired became a memory she would treasure forever. Months later, Ashcroft Global unveiled a permanent exhibit inside its headquarters honoring every original employee whose efforts shaped the company's foundation. Elias's photograph hung beside the charter bearing his signature, reminding every visitor that greatness is rarely built by one celebrated individual. It is built by ordinary people whose quiet integrity survives long after applause fades away. Victoria changed as well. Recruitment policies shifted to value resilience alongside experience. Interview panels received training to recognize potential hidden behind difficult life circumstances. Employee assistance programs expanded dramatically because leadership finally understood that compassion strengthens organizations instead of weakening them. The company continued growing, but something far more valuable also flourished. Respect. If this story has touched your heart so far, please write "Kindness always returns" in the comments below. Your words may inspire someone who is struggling today to keep believing that better days are still ahead. Years later, visitors often stopped before the framed charter displayed inside the headquarters. Most admired the elegant signatures without, knowing the extraordinary story behind one forgotten name. Yet every employee who joined Ashcroft Global eventually learned about the single father whose greatest achievement was never wealth or recognition. His true legacy was proving that character cannot be measured by resumes, expensive suits, or impressive titles. Sometimes the strongest people are simply those who continue showing up with honesty after life has taken almost everything from them. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to Soulful Tales 2. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind the world that kindness, humility, and second chances still have the power to change lives forever.